What it do, baby?
Welcome back to the ATB podcast. We're your hosts, Kelvin
Gary?
and today we'll be doing an analysis of the Boston Celtics. And before we start, I would like to say our question of the day, which is Enes Kanter the best center in the league or the second best center in the league? And there's no other answer, so don't I don't want to hear any side comments in the comment section down below. And okay, I'm just kidding, but our actual question is, are the Celtics better with Kyrie or Kemba?
Kemba.
All right, so to start, I would like to talk about the Celtics or advantages that we could find. And the first one is that they have very good perimeter defense. As everyone knows, they have one of the best perimeter defenders in the league right now in Marcus Smart. And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are also, I wouldn't say quite All-NBA level just yet, but they're very close. And when you have all three of them playing at the same time, they make for a very impactful defensive trio.
For sure. I think the standout for me really is Jaylen Brown, because of course there was a lot of talk over the summer of him wanting that big contract, and a lot of people were saying, don't really give it to him. His career high in points per game was just around 14.5, but he's gone from averaging 13 points last year to now 20. He's shooting 38% from 3, 55% from 2, and he's gone from shooting 10 shots to now 15.5. So he's taken a huge leap for them on both sides of the ball. I couldn't agree with you more. They're both almost elite level defenders at the wing position, and Marcus Smart is definitely one of the best guard and wing defenders, because he can really guard. They can all guard anywhere from the 2, the 3, and even the 4 for Tatum and Brown. And Marcus Smart can even guard some of the bigger guys in the league because of his ability to swipe the ball and pick your pocket. So I think when you were talking about Jason Tatum, he's actually 15th in defensive plus minus. So that's really impressive. Another thing with their defense is Daniel Tice. He's actually 4th in center defensive plus minus, just behind a few guys such as Rudy Gobert and Brook Lopez, who are some of the best rim protectors in the league. So not only when you have great wing defense, but you also have a big man who's very efficient on the defensive end, and he definitely knows what he's doing. He's a very smart defender. Not only does that help Kemba Walker, he's been known. Well, actually, one thing that I wanted to say as well is that Kemba Walker, I think, is an underrated defender. So I don't even think that you don't need elite defenders around him, because I think he's actually quite a good team defender. I understand that he's undersized, but he definitely can do a lot of things out there. But I think it definitely helps him when you have so many great wing defenders and a great big who's very efficient on the defensive end. So I think that just it helps him on the offensive end, the defensive end. When you have good defensive chemistry, not a lot of teams have good defensive chemistry, but they do. So when you have good defensive chemistry, you know that your offensive chemistry is going to be some of the best in the league, which theirs is.
Yeah, so to give all the viewers out there some context about where the Boston Celtics are in regards to offensive and defensive rating, they are at 112.9, which is 5th in the league, and for the offensive rating, and for the defensive rating they are 106.8, which is 4th in the league. And another interesting stat is that opponents only score an average of 106.8 points against the Celtics, which is 2nd in the league.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you go ahead.
Here, I got it. So the next point I wanted to bring up is that the Celtics are very good at getting everyone touches, and I think that has a lot to do with Kyrie not being there. Because obviously Kyrie's a great player, but he's never been known to play that much off ball, and he's a very good and very efficient scorer, but he's not particularly known to give up the ball as much, and he needs a lot of touches. So in regards to that, Kemba Walker is a better fit for the Celtics, because the Celtics already have a lot of great young players that are still growing to their full potential. And right now the Celtics have 3 players that are averaging more than 20 points, which is very impressive. And I think that has to do a lot with Kemba Walker not giving a lot more touches to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and just allowing the young players to develop on their own. And also, another thing about Jaylen Brown is that he's not like a great on-ball creator, even though he has improved his handle a lot. And the main thing he's very good at is getting open for catch and shoots, which makes him very valuable on the Celtics, especially since Kemba and Jason are using up a lot of the touches already. So it's very important that Jaylen Brown has a very good outside game, perimeter game, so that he can complement the two main scorers on the team.
For sure. Right now he is he's shooting around 38% from three, so that's very efficient. And I actually think his on-ball creating is actually very, very, very good. I remember on ABC when he crossed up Ben Simmons, and then we all remember him dunking on Giannis last year in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a great he's a great isolation scorer, but I definitely agree. He can also catch and shoot. He's their best 3-point shooter by percentage, along with Jason Tatum and Gordon Hayward. So I think when you have Hayward and Brown as these great 3-point shooters, and so now you're able to have Tatum and Kemba create, and they're also great 3-point shooters. So that kind of just goes into what I was going to say for their next advantage, is that their starting five is very, very good at shooting. Mm-hmm. Jaylen Brown, as we said, 38%. Gordon Hayward, 39%. Jason Tatum, 40%. So that just gives you an idea. Kemba Walker around 37, 38%. So these guys are all great shooters. And as we all know, it's a shooting league. It's a fast-paced league. You got to be able to hit the three. And while their bench does struggle shooting, aside from Marcus Smart, when their starting five shoots so well and they create so well, and they're so unselfish, not only are they able to create open looks for their teammates, but they can also create looks for themselves. So there's never a stoppage of offense, because you can give it to Kemba, you can give it to Tatum, you can give it to Brown, you can give it to Gordon Hayward, Marcus Smart. So many guys can create, and they're all unselfish. It's an assist by committee team, and it's a rebound by committee team. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that's really special about them, is they're developing a dominant player in Jason Tatum, but they also have several other guys who can give you 30 a night. And that just bodes really well for them, and that's why I think they're one of the best teams in the East.
Yep. So to add on to what you're saying about the 3-point shooting, because just about everyone in the starting five is a elite shooter, it allows them. Okay, so the main thing I wanted to bring up is that not only are the starting five like very good at shooting, but the whole team in general, they're very open to playing off ball, and I think they found the right balance between like a good equilibrium between I don't know how to quite explain this, but how for some teams, for example, I know maybe like the Clippers, where it's like when you have two really good stars that are both these very good isolation scorers, they, instead of sharing the ball all the time, it's more like they just take turns attacking.
Yeah.
And so I think the Celtics really found a very good balance between isolation and also playing in the system, because for me, from what I've seen, it never seems like the ball stops that much. It's always moving, always getting to a different person. And since so many players on the team are very good off-ball players, and because they're all very good shooters, they all have a good amount of gravity, so this allows the ball to just move around a lot, and they can get a lot of good looks down there.
Yeah, I think the Rockets are another team that kind of have that isolation, your turn, my turn kind of system. Mm-hmm. So with the Celtics, another thing I wanted to bring up is when you have Jason Tatum playing the power forward, that makes your pick and roll game extremely effective, as well as your pick and fade game, because of course, Daniel Tice, he's not a great roller to the rim, but he can definitely shoot and he can finish inside. But when you have a guy like Jason Tatum who can play the three, who could even play the two if he needed to, when you have him playing power forward, it opens so many things for you, because you can have him being the ball handler and having guards setting screens for him to give him mismatches, or you can have him setting the screen, and then he's extremely athletic, so he's not going to miss around the rim, and he can also hit the open three. So I wanted to talk just solely about Jason Tatum for a minute, because he is becoming an extremely he's becoming one of the best players in the league. I definitely think he's a future MVP, averaging 24 points this season to go along with 7 rebounds and 3 assists, shooting extremely efficiently. I wanted to talk about how not only he's one of the best players in the league, but he's also one of the most clutch players in the league. I remember he's had a few game winners. I think he's had maybe 1 or 2 against the Knicks. He had that ankle breaker against Paul George to take the game to overtime. He had a really big shot against the Lakers a few months ago to tie the game. Um, According to NBA.com, he is in the 6 to 7 range for most efficient shoot or for best players in quote clutch situations. So to me, that kind of just reminds me of like inside of 2 minutes, game winning type situations. He actually shoots 54% in clutch situations, which is second in the league, only behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So he's extremely clutch. And everybody thought that Kemba Walker was going to be their go-to guy down the stretch because he showed last year in Charlotte that he was one of the most clutch players in the league. Now you have two of the most clutch players in the league. You have Jason Tatum, who's hit several game winners, and like I said, second in field goal percentage in clutch situations. And now you also have Kemba Walker, who last year was it's no surprise to him to have the ball in his hands at the last minute.
Yeah,
so now when you have a guy like Jason Tatum who's never been in that position because of Kyrie, and he just steps into it and becomes immediately great at it, I think it proves how great he's going to be and how much greater he's going to continue to get.
Yep. And another thing with Jason Tatum is that he's developed into a very good defender as well. And he's arguably like maybe I would say like maybe top 8 to one of the like best two-way players in the league. And like his offense is already very polished, and he's an offensive engine. But at least for me this season, Jason Tatum has really developed his defensive game, and now I would definitely consider him a elite perimeter defender on that end.
For sure. I wanted to talk about Enes Kanter for a second. I know we were joking about him a little bit earlier. He may be the greatest center of all time, maybe the best center in the league. But one thing that he does do great, as well as being the GOAT, is he's actually 16th in offensive rebounds with just under 3 per game at 2.8. And I think that speaks a lot because he's only playing 17 and a half minutes per game. So the other guys that are leading him are players like Zion, Hassan Whiteside, Clint Capella. These guys are all playing at least 28 to 30 minutes a game. He's only played 17. Andre Drummond, another guy. These guys are all playing 25, 30, 35 minutes a game. And Enes Kanter's playing maybe a third of the game. And he's averaging 2.8 offensive rebounds per game. So I think there were questions about maybe their rebounding coming into this season because they lost Al Horford and they didn't have like that elite big that some of the Eastern Conference powerhouses had. Like, Joel Embiid and a few other guys, Nikola Vucevic, if you consider him elite. There were some really good centers, and you were wondering, will the Celtics be able to match up against them? And I think Enes Kanter, he's always been a great rebounder, but I think if there's ever a rebounding drought in a playoff game, just give Enes, just give him 20, 25 minutes. He can get you 4 to 5 offensive rebounds. That's just how good he is in the paint. So I think just give him a little bit of credit. Great rebounder.
Yeah. So to add on to what you're saying about Enes, he really makes up for. Okay, I wouldn't say the Celtics definitely don't have a lack of rebounding, but they have a lack of elite big men. And Daniel Tice is a really good role player, but he's nothing special. So like I think between Enes and Tice, I think they like really they really stepped up this season to provide solid minutes to the Celtics, especially when they have to face against a team that has a really good big, and they're just given very quality minutes to Brad Stevens.
For sure. I think the only problem is I just don't think if they run into the Sixers, I don't think either of them can guard Joel Embiid. Because as we all know, Enes Kanter is a great defender, but he's a great rebounder, but he's definitely not a great defender. Yeah, sure. He's been known to be on the bottom half for rebounding. And Daniel Tice is a good defender. He's just not nearly as bulky as some of the other starters in the league. And he's he likes to play more in the perimeter, especially on offense. But, I think that overall, all their strengths just kind of overweigh that. And obviously we'll go into that more as we go into their weaknesses. A few other things I wanted to say were just how great they are at penetrating the rim, getting open shots for their teammates. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Marcus Smart. As we all know, he's a great defender, and this year he's emerging, as one of the best 6 men in the league. He can start for you. He can come off the bench. He's a very streaky shooter, and he's inefficient at times. But he's a great playmaker, a great defender, and he gives great effort. And when he's giving great effort, the rest of the team is giving great effort. And I think effort it's usually kind of undermined. You have teams like the Sixers who don't give a lot of effort on some nights, and that's why their record is a lot worse than it should be. But the Celtics, every night they're out there giving effort. Smart is always there, leading the pack, and everybody just kind of follows in his place. So with that effort and with that ability to defend, like we were talking about, they're 6th in fast break points, as well as 7th in steals. So when you're top 10 in those two categories, you're getting out and running. You're getting open shots, and as we talked about, they're great at inside finishing with guys like Kemba, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart. The list goes on. Gordon Hayward. So they're top 10 in steals, rebounds, and fast break points. So in the playoffs, it's going to be troublesome for some of the slower paced teams like the Raptors and like the Sixers to keep up with those guys on fast breaks, especially on defense in a fast break situation.
Yep. So to add on to what you're saying about Marcus Smart, and by the way, Marcus Smart is probably one of my favorite players in the league. So the main thing that stuck out to me this season is that Marcus Smart has really improved his playmaking, and like last season he already improved a lot on the offensive end by adding a consistent 3-point shot. But this season, I really see him stepping up in that secondary playmaker role behind Kemba Walker, because the Celtics don't, like, they have several good playmakers, but they don't have like a great playmaker, with no one like averaging more than 4 assists. So like I would even say their best playmakers either Marcus Smart or of course Kemba, but maybe even Gordon Hayward, and they're not known to be great playmakers. So, but like seeing Marcus Smart play this season, you really see him playing a lot like a point guard in a lot of ways, except he's playing in that like almost like Patrick Beverley kind of role, except he's orchestrating the offense a little more often, especially when like more I guess like some of the starting 5 goes to the bench, and he's just shown that he's really increased his vision this season, and he's finding a lot of I guess like
open shooters, things like that.
Yeah, open shooters, cutters that I just didn't see him get like seeing before.
Yeah, I think that's why he works so well with Kemba, because he allows Kemba to play off ball, and I think like Drew Holiday, Kemba Walker is actually one of those guys that I think is actually better off ball. As good as a ball handler as he is, I like to kind of play him as I would play him as a combo guard, and that's what the Celtics are doing. When he was in Charlotte, he always had the ball 24/7. It would lead, he'd get really tired. Of course, he'd give you 25 a night. But now in the Celtics, if you need to, you can give Marcus Smart the ball. He can run the offense. Like you said, he's one of their only pass-first players, in my opinion. All their other guys are capable passers, but he's a pass-first kind of guy. He's always going to look for the open man. So when you have such an unselfish player like that, he just wants to win. I think it works great with Kemba Walker, and it works great with their other wings. A few more advantages that I had for the Celtics. A few of my last ones were that they're 4th in free throw percentage at 80%. We've talked about this in a lot of our previous videos with teams like the Clippers, who are great at shooting free throws, as well as the Nuggets. Free throws are extremely important especially in close game situations in the playoffs. You're trying to win a championship. You need to be able to shoot the ball, and they shoot 80% from the line, which is extremely, extremely good. That's 4th in the league. Several guys shooting 85% from the line who will be playing in crunch time minutes. Mm-hmm. And I think free throws, like we said in some of our previous videos, they're just overlooked now. And when you have a team that's 4th in the league in free throws, I think it really helps. Oh my gosh, helps the chances to winning close games. Struggling to speak, but I think that that'll really help them in playoff situations.
Yeah. So another point I wanted to bring up. I think this one's pretty obvious because we've been talking about it just about the whole episode, is that the Celtics have a lot of shot creators, and like when Gordon Hayward's healthy, they basically have 4, I would say, elite or at least very good shot creators on their team, with Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, and Gordon Hayward all being able to create their own shot. And like to add on with that, they're also they also have a lot of good isolation scores, but they don't necessarily really need the isolation because they work very well together as a team. But I just wanted to bring that up because it could be important in the playoffs where your half court sets won't work as well.
For sure. I think my last strength for them is playing against Giannis. As we've seen in the past, Giannis really only is able to. He's only slowed down really when you just have a wall of really, really good wing defenders who can stop him in the paint and kind of give him a lot of trouble. You're not going to stop him, but you can definitely slow him down. So with guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, and even Daniel Tice, who's one of the more mobile big men in our league today, I think that they're all going to be able to clog up the paint nicely. And then you also have a guy like Marcus Smart who's drawing all these charges. I think the Celtics match up really well against Giannis, and that's why I actually think the Celtics are the second best team in the East, not the Raptors, just because, well, the Raptors also match up great against Giannis. I think the Celtics match up just as good, and they also have a little bit more offense.
So yeah, I think we'll talk about that at the end of the video, but to finish up our strengths, the Celtics, or when the opponent plays when another team plays the Celtics, their field goal percentage drops by 1.6, or there's a negative 1.6 differential between the opponent field goal percentage and the defensive field goal percentage against the Celtics, which is 5th in the league. So just based on that, and their defensive rating and all their elite perimeter defenders, you can really tell that the Celtics have a very good defense as well, as having I would say one of the best offenses in the West.
For sure. Or in the East.
Wait, the East. Yeah. I always think they're in the West for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't know. Yeah. But I think that's all the strengths I have for the Celtics.
All right. So to move on to the weaknesses, I think this is a pretty obvious one. The Celtics have a pretty weak bench, and they have had a lot of players step up this season, especially younger players like Grant Williams, Semi Ojeleye, and like newer players like Brad Wanamaker and Daniel Tice, who played a lot of years overseas, but is playing like one of their first seasons in the NBA. So they've had a lot of people step up and play the roles that that's asked of them, and they played it to perfection. But the problem is that they still don't, they're as good of role players as Grant Williams, Brad Wanamaker are. They're not elite. They're not Lou Will. They're not Montrezl Harrell, and I think their starting five makes most of their shots basically, and their bench is more complementary to their starting five. So they just have a relatively weak bench, but when you have such a good starting five, I think with the correct rotation, it really makes up for a weaker bench. But that's necessary when you have so many good players on one team.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit lower on their bench than you are. Yeah. I think that you have Marcus Smart, who's a top 5, top 8, 6 man in the league, somewhere in that range. And then you have Enes Kanter, who's a really good backup big man. He could start on a lot of different teams. He could start on the Celtics, Him and Daniel Tice are pretty interchangeable as far as who's starting and who's on the bench. But I think that Grant Williams and Semi Ojeleye are definitely both decent role players, and they're both 25 or younger. I just think that they're, in my opinion, I just think that they're both below average as far as what they're kind of asked to do, because Semi Ojeleye is a very good defender. That is one thing that they're both very high energy players on the defensive end. But I just think that when you look at some of the other teams in the league with their bench depth, like you said, Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell, you have teams with the Rockets who have guys like Eric Gordon, Ben McLemore, the Mavericks with DeLon Wright, and Seth Curry. These guys all have several shot creators and really good shooters. What you need from your bench usually is just overall shooting and a 6-man who can do a lot of different things for you. And I just think that their shooting really struggles. I think that their 6-man is definitely good, with Marcus Smart being one of the best in the league. But I just think that if they could upgrade those positions, as far as Semi Ojeleye and Grant Williams, I think that they'd be in a better position. I also think that maybe they should, maybe give a few more minutes to Carson Edwards or Romeo Langford, some of their really young talent. I believe they spent a first-round pick on Romeo Langford, if I'm not mistaken. So I definitely think, you should be playing him more. Just try to get him a little bit more minutes. He's only played in 27 games, so maybe just play him a little bit more than Semi Ojeleye or Grant Williams, and I think that may be able to help their shot creating off the bench, as well as their shot making.
Yeah, I think overall the Celtics are just a very young team, and especially their bench. I think they need at least a year or two to develop a little more of some of their bench guys. To a point where I can really say that their bench is at least average. So for me right now, their bench is definitely below average, or maybe they're just pretty bad in general. But as you were saying, you need like some shot creators off the bench, and they don't really have any. And that's the main thing. It's like they don't have great shooting either. Most of their guys are just really good role players because they defend well. They can play their roles. They're good, screen setters, playmakers, but none of them are really, shot creators.
For sure. And I think they're just kind of below average in some of the other things like shooting and things like that.
Yeah. So to add on to what we were saying about their bench, or this is more like just focus on their big men, but they don't have a lot of good big men, and this isn't a big problem to me, but they do have mediocre rim protection. I know Daniel Theis is a good defender, but to me, it just seems like they don't really have much. Like, Daniel Theis doesn't play that much like a rim protector a lot of times, almost. Okay, yeah. Well, it's hard to say because, he's a very good defender, but I just don't see him having that, like, impact on like at least in rim protection.
Well, another thing is that he's only 6'8" as well, so just wanted to point that out.
Really?
Yeah, he's only 6'8", so that doesn't help.
Yeah, so he's undersized, he's not the most athletic, and he just doesn't have the same impact as some of the best rim protectors in the league.
For sure. I think another weakness, and the Celtics don't have many in my opinion, but one more that I could find is that they're 25th in assists per game with just right around 23 per game. We talked about this briefly a little bit earlier. They kind of remind me of the Clippers, where they have so many shot creators, but they don't have a ton of great playmakers. But they also have a lot of great rim penetrators. It's kind of confusing. I think it goes deeper into the numbers when you look at teams like the Celtics and the Clippers, because when you have all those guys who can create shots, it doesn't really matter if they're putting up the assist numbers. What you know is that they can put up the assist numbers. Yeah. When you have guys like Kemba and JT and Jaylen Brown, they're all willing passers. So I think at the end of the day, it won't matter too much. But, they are 25th in assists, and they don't have a player averaging more than 5 assists. So there could be a potential problem there, but it's not like a lot of their guys like to run a stagnant offense. I think it was definitely more of a problem when Kyrie was there, because he didn't have a lot of amazing playmaking, but the ball was also in one guy's hands for a long time. But that's definitely not the case this year.
Yeah, so I definitely think this year, like, everyone's able to get in a better rhythm because the ball's getting passed around so much, unlike in the previous years. And also, I wanted to point this out earlier, but I forgot to, is that Brad Stevens is a very good coach, and he's always been known as one of the best coaches in the league, and he's great at developing young talent, and also he runs very good defensive sets and offensive sets. So just overall, he's a very solid coach that can definitely coach a championship caliber team.
Definitely. One game away from the finals without Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. Very impressive. I actually think that's actually all the weaknesses I have for the Celtics. I'm really high on them. I don't think that they really have a lot of glaring weaknesses, and I definitely think they're going to be – I think they're championship contenders for the next 5 to 10 years with all their young talent.
Yeah. I'm also very high on the Celtics, and I think if anyone's going to beat the Bucks, it's the Celtics.
Definitely.
So, I want to get your predictions on where the Celtics are going to be at the end of this playoffs.
So I think we've talked about it a few times in some of our other videos, but I believe that the Celtics will make it to, I think they'll make it to a conference final. I'm not exactly sure. There have been rumors that the new playoff format will be 1 through 16. So I don't really know if you can define it as like a Eastern Conference or a Western Conference final, but I think regardless, they're going to be one of the final 4 teams in the playoffs, as long as they don't run into the Lakers, the Clippers, or the Bucks in one of those rounds, because in my opinion, they are the 4th best team in the NBA behind those 3 teams. So I see them making it to the Final 4, and I wouldn't be surprised if they take Milwaukee or one of the LA teams to 6 or 7 games, depending on what the playoff format is.
Definitely. Yeah. So I definitely agree with you on this. I know we're both very high on the Celtics, and I definitely have them. I don't know what the playoff format is going to be, but if it's what it normally is, then I definitely have them making the conference finals. And I might actually have to take this back from what I said earlier, but personally, I might actually like the Boston Celtics more than the Milwaukee Bucks. But so actually, I'll have them making the finals instead of the Bucks.
Well, we'll take.
Yeah, well,
Let's see what happens. They
that's what
definitely have a good
podcasts are
chance.
for.
Yeah, yep, for sure. Trying to get those views.
All right, so if you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and leave a comment down below on what you would want us to talk about, and we're just open to any ideas in general. And as always, we'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.